and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I have another amazing guest for you today, Miss Veda Brooks. Veda and I met on a project a few years ago where we focused on helping service members, veterans, and their families. And I just love Veda's heart, soul, and passion. You are in for a treat today, being able to hear a lot of what she has going on in the community. She's sharing about one thing that she has done, and she has shared with me over time many of things that she has done and worked on these amazing initiatives. So I'm super excited today. We are going to be talking about caring for our youth and taking care of our youth. She's going to give us some tips, talk about fostering this beautiful big family that she has created. And I'm excited myself to learn more about this and hear from her. So let's dive in. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I'm super excited to be able to talk to you and hear more about all the amazing work you've done.
But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I think you're such a lovely person. And so I feel honored to be on your show.
Aw, well, I knew when I started this, you were one of the people who have done so many amazing things, and I don't even know where to begin. So I'm going to pass it to you, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we'll dive in deep to some of these really impactful community things that you've been a part of.
All right. Well, thank you. So I am a veteran. I really did spend a lot of time trying to separate who I was as a veteran and what I do in the community. But I realize that is me. Being a veteran is part of my identity. So I am a veteran and I do work with veterans as one of my jobs. But my advocacy is really in children, military children, foster youth, children who are aging out of the system. That's my passion. And so I spend a lot of time advocating fundraising, preparing them for college, setting up programs so that they can be the best human they can be. And so that's really what I want to talk about today. That resiliency in children.
That's a great way to say it, the resiliency in children. That makes me think of, I was just at an event, I did rock climbing with a friend of mine. And, like as we get older, we start being more experienced. We start being more open to, unfortunately, some of the dark sides of the world too, right? So here we are halfway up this 50-foot wall thinking, why are these little kids all the way at the top and we aren't? What is stopping us? So I'm excited that you're a part of that and really helping the kids in your area. You mentioned that helping them even prepare for college. What does that look like? What are some of the involvements that you've been in there?
So when we're preparing the children for college, it really depends on, first of all, we get to know them. And so each child, of course, is different. So there is a case by case. Some children we work with just getting them ready academically. But most of the children we work with across the board, they need life skills. Kids who are coming through foster care, they bounce around a lot. And so I think they expect somebody else to teach them how to balance a checkbook, how to, and really, I kind of dated myself when I said checkbook because we don't really do checks that much anymore. So the children aren't learning the importance of writing down in a ledger what they're taking out and what they're putting in. And so, it's easy to go into overdraft buying a pizza while you're sitting in the dorm at college. So we also teach them how to cook on a budget. You'd be surprised how many meals we've been able to make with one rotisserie chicken. And so we teach them those kind of skills so that so that we can like kind of put to rest some of those really stressful parts. We also raise money for scholarships. We gave about $9,000 worth of scholarships out this year, which is wonderful. And so I'm very excited about that. We've housed some apartments, so we provide them with, furniture, beds, blankets, those kind of things. And some of our kids also need dorm room supplies. Because, everybody goes off and you like, what's your favorite color? What do you want? How do you do that? What do you want it to look like? So we kind of get those questions answered, and then we prepare a package and we deliver it so that they can have it at their dorm room. So they're like every other kid on campus, and they get to decorate. And it's not coming out of their pocket, because I remember ramen noodles during college. You just really have to figure out what's important. And sometimes that $300 textbook is more important than eating, because you really don't want to fail that class. So, you know what I mean? So you keep accidentally popping up at the table with your friends when they go out to eat. And you're like, hey, didn't know you were going to be here. Let me have some fries. So, yeah, so we kind of, we try to make them more self-sufficient that way.
Those are really great points. When you think of people who have had to bounce around from home to home, you're dealing with different values, different belief systems, not having a consistency or stable person really building a lot of those core skills. Like you said, I'll never forget my mom teaching me how to write a check, and like you said, balancing a checkbook and writing my own name. And a lot of our youth and the foster systems miss those connections. I think it's really cool that you have a program that helps with that. How do youth get involved in the program? Is it that you work with your state department, or what does that connection look like?
I work with a lot of other nonprofits that are connected with our children's services. And so some of them do mental health, but then we invite them to a teen night. And so they have like a teen group. And then we always figure out how to throw in some education. We also just offer the classes to high schoolers. We don't say, if you're a foster kid, come to the class. We offer it to all of them because we want to build community. And we think it's important that we don't add any shame by pointing out, this is for foster kids. Come on in, you guys. So, and you'd be surprised. A lot of kids aren't getting that, even with parents at home. They just figure they've been watching me, so they probably already know. And then you find out they didn't. And it's not a bad thing on a parent. I would just want people to understand that this isn't saying, hey, you didn't do enough for your kid. This is saying, I have a child who, and I thought I spent a lot of time with him. You know what I mean? Like who, but I get a call and they're like, hey, mom, so I took some chicken out for dinner, and then I met this girl, and then I decided to take her out to dinner. So I never came back after class. And then by the time I got in, I was kind of tired. And I woke up this morning and the chicken is still in the sink. Can I eat that tonight? No, son, you can't eat that tonight. You know what I mean? Throw that out. But we just need to be available to our kids, because you just never know what's happening in their heads. And that's what we want to be for kids all over the country who are experiencing those kind of questions. So we have adults who are willing to take phone calls and answer questions. I have people who are in the finance field professionally, and they don't mind talking to kids and be like, do you really need that Corvette? I know they told you could pay $150 a month, but I need you to really look at what you're buying, because you're going to buy 7 Corvettes by the time you pay that one off. So these are the kind of things that they need some adult supervision. We're not taking over their lives. We're just a sounding board so they understand, and they get a pseudo parent, but we're family, so it works out.
I love that you're working with all the students. It really makes me think. I'm laughing as you're telling these stories because I relate to them both sides, both being a step parent and then the things I have called and had to ask my mom or dad about is it's sometimes too, it's hearing it from someone else, right? There's so many times I could tell you, like, I know my husband told his son this. I know we've told him this, but you have anybody else tell him. And I think of it as, even now as being a caretaker for my husband, you get to the point where this is the person that tells you everything. They told you how to walk, use the restroom, brush your teeth, and you start to try and develop your own identity that you're like, you've been telling me what to do my whole life. That even if they just hear the same thing from somebody else, sometimes they're more receptive, or maybe how you say it. And it's great too, like you said, everyone can benefit, and it's not pointing anyone out. And it also shows them, hey, my peers are learning this too, and maybe gives them some of that that confidence and like, oh, okay, I didn't know either. You didn't know. Great. We can work forward. But I also love that you pointed out and said, hey, parents, if you're not doing this, it's okay. Like, first of all, none of us are perfect and we're doing the best we can with what we have in the moment. So this is just another layer of amazing community support. So working with all the different nonprofits and then working with the school systems and saying, hey, how can we reach out to everyone and be supportive for everyone? I think that's a really great initiative.
It's fun for me. And then I've recently started working with Georgia National Guard families and the youth, and it's been amazing. Going, observing, teaching them classes, and you show up, and we last year we had a suicide prevention summit. Um, and I was like, we need a youth lane. Without a youth lane, this is going to be lame. And so I just advocated and advocated for that youth lane. And so I ended up with kids. I've ended up with preteens, but I was really excited to see some college students who were peers and mentors to those kids. And now, so they were there, and it was amazing to just sit and talk with them. I believe, especially when we talk about mental health, it's going to be so different for our kids because they are open to talking and sharing, and they understand community. So, and it's just really good to sit with them because, sometimes you're out there and you're doing the work and you're talking and you're talking and you're talking and the adults are looking at you like, we had this talk already. Why do we keep having this talk? And then you get in a room full of young people and they're like, yeah, so it's really good. Like when I can call my friend when I'm feeling upset and then they can talk with me and I'm like, yes, it's working. People are talking. And so that's just another really good, that is the reward to see our children become more resilient and they have the ability and they want to express themselves and they want to use conversation and uh, and they want to resolve issues before they explode. And so they're getting in touch with their own feelings and they understand it's okay to feel a certain way, but they also know that they have two or three people out there in the world that they can grab hold to and it'll all get better. Knowing you have that support is what our kids need, is what we had before we did so much traveling. Your family stayed pretty much in the same community. And so you had aunts and uncles and grandmas all right there, and you were able to talk to each other. And when you're upset with your mom, but you don't want to get in trouble, so you just pretend like everything's okay. But you could go to your Aunt Rachel and go, man, my mom is being so mean. And then she's probably telling me exactly what my mom told me. But when it came from her, it was like a light bulb went off. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Well, why did she scream at me? She could have just said that. And my mom was probably at home, like, I've told the girl the same thing 100 times. But it's just good. It's building that community. So I'm loving it. I'm loving watching them and seeing their bright eyes ready to move into the future.
What a reward, if I can even speak right. What a reward to be able to really see all of the efforts and the upstream prevention for years really making a difference. I think that speaks volumes to everyone who's been in the positions we've been in or the positions before us that have really tried to change our societal norms on talking about taboo topics like mental health. It's so cool to be able to see generations coming up to say, yeah, I need to talk about this. This, hey, I'm bothered, I'm anxious, like calling things what they are. I just think it's really cool. I also love that you are such a great advocate and a voice for the youth. Because I know in a lot of the realms that we're in, a lot of the groups we're in, we get really nichey. And you and I have worked on similar projects for service members, veterans, and their families. But a lot of time those
Mhm.
projects get focused on just the veterans or maybe just the service members. And then the families are still there. I know I used
Yeah.
to always put lowercase s and v and capitalize the F because I'm like, the families are important. And being someone who both my parents were active duty growing up, in the roles that I've been in, often I forget how, like myself, I forget how important the children of our service members and our veterans, like their role in our
Mhm.
communities and their role in the dynamics of that piece. So I love that you're like, hey, the youth is important. And not just military family youth, youth across the board, right? But also saying, hey, we need a youth track. We need a youth track. We need to focus on this. And then having people come in and being interested and wanting to talk about it is just, it's really awesome to hear that. And I love that it's going on in multiple different states as well.
Yeah, so and that is good because listen, I became passionate about foster youth because I worked for a church and we took in a lot of youth. And I don't know why, but I was drawn to teenagers. I wanted those teen girls. And so I tell everybody I have 14 kids because every child that came through my home, they're still my kid. And so they're adults now. I have grandbabies. It's beautiful. We meet every year. So they come from wherever they are. And we have I mean, we can come together anytime they want to. You know, my house is open, but every summer we all meet up in one location and we kind of travel it and we all meet up in a location and it's loud and it's funny and it's like the best thing ever because uh, the important thing that I wanted to build when I brought the youth in my home was a family. It's a family. And so you just because you may go someplace else or even go back to your mom, it didn't change that you are part of this family. So they can come and go. I'm here. I'm advising them still, and it has just been, they think that they talk sometimes, they're like, you're just the best. You know how you get all those really nice words during Mother's Day and stuff, and they tell you how great you are. And I sit in awe at what they have all accomplished because I know their backstory. And so sometimes, especially with our military children, they're sitting in a classroom and they're falling asleep, right? Or they're yawning, or they're just distracted. And the teachers might want to label them, you know, their homework isn't finished. And so they might be thinking, you know, look at this. I got a bad kid in my classroom. I got a kid who doesn't care. They don't care about their education. Why should I be working on it? But what we don't tell our teachers in our counties is that that 13-year-old you're looking at was taking care of the parent because the other parent only works nights because they have to stay home with them all day and then they go to work all night. And that 13-year-old is home to make sure the bandages get changed, the medicine is taken, and so we don't, and the kids don't, it's the life they know. So they think all the other kids are doing the same thing. But we have 13-year-olds being caregivers, and we have veterans coming back with PTSD, and everybody sees them and they look like they're fine. But at home, it can be scary sometimes for a kid and they're trying to keep it together and be supportive. And so we just need to make sure that they're taken care of. And it's not that different from our foster kids because you don't get removed from the house because nobody bought you brand new shoes. We have to remember they've been through some trauma and they are just, holding on to strings, trying to make this work and trying to find an adult they can trust and that won't betray them. And so we just need to be more mindful on how we communicate and how we talk. And quite honestly, just how we as a community make them feel like they're the most important person you're talking to at the very moment you're talking to them, because you might be that one kind person who said to them, I think you're important. And, and so it's just one of those that once you see the light go on in the eyes of a child, you say to yourself, I'm going to keep doing this because this is the most amazing feeling ever, you know?
I used to tell people that, oh, kids aren't my thing. Youth isn't my thing when they would ask me about, oh, do you help with youth suicide prevention? And then over time, I've really realized that, I mean, first of all, that's kind of where it starts. And I thought, wow, I'm working a lot with adults, but I am talking to them about their kids because, like you're saying, right, we only know the battles we wake up to every day. And these kids, oftentimes caring for an adult, caring for their siblings, and then having to take on a role. That was my mom. My mom had to take care of her younger siblings growing up, and that forced her into a responsibility way earlier than she should have. And then that also turned into the dynamics, and now the younger siblings looking and holding the older sibling to a higher standard, a standard that now their protection comes from a sibling, and that's a lot. And I think oftentimes when it comes to youth, the thing that I've learned the most is, for adults, I always say validate, don't relate. But for youth, it's still really important to validate, but we as adults, we see it as kid probs, but it is. It's they don't know anything other than that. It is their entire world. And what you're saying, the population that you're serving, right? They have a whole lot more going on behind the scenes that we've never seen. But if we treat them like whatever the issue is, if we act like that's not important because we've experienced worse things, or oh, wait till you get older. I'm sure you hear that. I hear that a lot, especially when it comes to like fitness and health. Oh, wait till you get older. And it's like, or I could just enjoy where I'm at right now, or, I can still have barriers where I'm at now. And that's where I think we have a huge disconnect from adults to kids, is really remembering that piece is they're still kids. They've gone through a lot, even if we don't feel like it's a lot.
Yeah, even if as an adult, I realized that your first love, yeah, you're gonna have some heartache, but you'll get over it. In the moment for that 13-year-old, that's everything. That was their first love. So everything is so big. And so it's important to validate the feeling. If you want to share that how heartbroken you were when it happened so that they understand that's normal. It's normal to feel heartbroken. It's normal to want to throw away everything that the guy ever gave you. And then when nobody's looking, go back in the trash can and try to pull out that one thing you
Mm.
can hold on to. All of that is just normal. But instead, we say to them, oh, there'll be plenty of guys. Don't worry about it. No, no, because in that moment, that was supposed to be their husband. That was supposed to be, that was everything. And so you just have to be able to be okay with knowing, well, I got through it. Yeah, but let's hear their experience so that we can guide them and validate who they are. Find out, is this a breakup because it was a bad relationship? Because relationships are great when they're going on, and then you find out, oh wow, all kinds of red flags were going off. But that day when she's telling you she's breaking up isn't the day to talk about it. But later, go back and revisit that and be like, okay, so what were the signs? What were you seeing? What were your red flags? What can we do different to make the next relationship safer? So don't blame it on them about, well, you should have known. No, they shouldn't have known. And you know that because there's still some people in your life with giant red flags that you're holding on to. And so let's not pretend like we figured this out.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because I was just talking to a friend the other night, and she said, I was talking to this guy and I think there was some misunderstanding. She said, but I think I do that in every relationship. She said, I think I always say, let me give them a chance. There was probably a misunderstanding. Let's talk it out. And she says, I don't think I need to keep doing that because I feel like I keep doing that and it's not doing me any good. And I thought, oh, I mean, that's a good point. And um, I thought like the guy seems nice and it sounded like a misunderstanding, but yeah, over time, but it's over time she learned that, right? You don't know that as a kid. And I do remember one of my son's first breakups, and he broke up with her and I was like shocked, right? Like, what? You broke up with her? So I had asked him, obviously like you said, wait a couple days, don't do it like rip the band-aid and let's just go ahead and keep the salt coming, right? I asked him, I said, so why did you decide to break up with her? And he said, I was like, I need every like person to feel this moment and I wish he would remember this moment every day of his life. He said, well, she wasn't treating me how I wanted to be treated, and I want to be treated good and valued. And I thought, he was like 10 or 11. And I'm like, that is like The wisest thing anyone has ever said in any breakup ever.
Yes, yes. You know, and the fact that you heard it and you were like, huh, because I'm thinking, I wish I had known that at 19. Here you are.
100%.
So you get that opportunity to learn something too. But it is because I think too, here's me wanting to give some adults credit. We have been talking about um, knowing who you are and not being okay with being treated anyway, then now our children are expecting us, are expecting the world to treat them with respect. And that is an awesome thing because before, especially in our young girls, we just wanted to fit in, you know? Our athletic boys are now saying, and I'm going to college instead of pretending like they can't read because they're also a football player or, or in swimming or whatever. So they're understanding that every little thing about them has value and somebody out there is going to value them for what they have and they don't need to change. You know how many times people are like, well, I really enjoyed ballet when I was, when I was in middle school, but then when I got to high school, boys didn't like ballet. So I just quit because, you want to be part of the popular side and you're like, you were a talented person and you quit because of what somebody else thought. Now they're like, now we got boys out there like, this is what I want to do and I'm doing it and they're just thriving and not worry what other people think. So to all the parents out there who have just like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I want to be a football player. And you're like, well, get those flags on, young lady. Let's go play some football. And you know what I mean? As opposed to, oh no, that's a boy sport. So
That
yeah, so it's really good.
that's definitely another cultural shift that we're seeing, like a societal shift is I yeah, I'm having so many like flashbacks to like my childhood here as we're talking to is I remember I wasn't popular, like everyone knew who I was and nowadays people don't believe like I had no friends growing up and I tried really hard in this group of girls I really wanted to be friends with. I remember there was like this slumber party and all of a sudden Barbies weren't cool anymore and I was devastated. Like, wait, they're not cool anymore. My dad had built me this beautiful custom two-story Barbie house with an attic. I mean, he made doorways. It was a Santa did it for me, right? But my dad, amazing how he was able to craft this after working long nights. But Barbies aren't cool anymore. So I remember the day I sold it. It was like the next year in a yard sale. To this day, when I drive by the house of the people who bought it, I still have the urge to like go knock on the door and be like, "Do you still have that Barbie house? I want it back." You know, and it's cool to see how popular it is now. And I'm really glad I didn't. I'm very sad I got rid of the Barbie house. I'm glad I kept my Barbies because I have those now that I'm able to look back on and say, like, I did love this. I loved creating clothes for them and fashion and dressing up, and I do that for myself, you know? But to see that now our youth is becoming more and more strong-willed in their identities, that I think that is a huge societal shift that is
Mhm.
so beautiful. And people like you, we have to thank for that because you're advocating and you're fighting for these youth and you're fighting for the long-term gains not just like the in the moments, but you're honoring those in the moments too.
Yeah. It is we're playing the long game. We are playing the long game because you want it's amazing. Get involved with, pick a youth. They don't have to be in foster care. But I say find somebody in your community, pick a youth, and don't kidnap them, but find someone and talk to them, you know, like on the porch. Just sit on the porch. You know, it don't be creepy, but just be like, hey, I'd like to know what you're interested in, you know? And you'd be surprised at the things that they are interested in and the knowledge you may have that what they think is this huge mountain they'll never be able to go. Like you said, those kids climb they were at the top and you were looking up at them. Those are the kids, those kids can then look back and see another kid and pull that kid up. So be that adult who pull that kid up as an example so that when they get to the top, they're cheering on that other kid. And that's something we forget when we become adults because we get in the corporate world and we're trying to make sure we're the one who's promoted as opposed to being someone else getting promoted over us. And sometimes we forget that what makes your work team work is that everybody is pulling for that one mission. You know what I mean? And then so and I get it. If I bring up Chick-fil-A right now, everybody will say, yeah, but they're rich. They are. But if you ever talk to a young person who's gone through their training program and talked about and learned their customer service, you will find that the skill they gained is far beyond anything you learn in the corporate world. That's what the corporate world wants you to know when you get there. And so we have these young people who are willing to do Chick-fil-A and learn how to be good customer service, and it will translate. And so they're not worried about who's going to take their position at Chick-fil-A. Not that Chick-fil-A isn't a wonderful place to go, but if your plan is to be at Chick-fil-A for the rest of your life, then that means there should be an adult from a bank who can talk to these kids about what would it look like in 15 years if you owned your own franchise? If this is something you love, then what if you own your own franchise? We don't have those conversations with our kids, especially those who are doing fast food, because we're like, well, this is just a starter job. If if the family had thought Chick-fil-A was just a starter job, they wouldn't be all over the country making billions of dollars. And so we have to feed that into our kids. What is your passion? And it's okay. It's okay to love to cut grass. So you're going to learn how to cut grass, but then what happens next when you become this world-renowned architecture for lawns? And I know there's a really proper word for it, but I can't think of it right now. You know what I mean? So you started off with one lawnmower and now you're cutting the lawn at the White House. There are just so many things that could happen. And as parents, as mentors, as adults, we have to always be looking ahead so that they too will see something beyond where they are. And and it works because if my goal is to finish high school, but I don't have anything after high school, I'm not planning. I got to have a vision for myself. Even if that vision doesn't make sense to the people around me, I want to build cabinets, right? If that's your dream, then let's talk about where you can go and what's your next step so you understand how to build a cabinet, right? Because the first thing you need to learn how to do, in my mind, is learn how to measure. Because if you can't measure, nobody wants your cabinet. It'll never sit right, right? So we just gotta keep going, asking that next question. What do you want to do? I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. Oh, that's awesome. Do you know most firemen have degrees? What would you like to get yours in? You just keep asking those questions. Take them to see a fireman, even when they're 16. Have them sit down with a fireman and find out if this is really something they want to do, right? Because a lot of people don't know you only work like 15, 20 days a month as a fireman because you work those long hours. Do you know how to save your money and budget in a way that would allow you to live off of 20 days worth of paycheck? Or do you think you're also going to have a side job? So you might be a fireman one part, and then you're a landscaper on another part. But we got to teach them, and we have to ask that next question, not make the decision for them, but just make them aware. Just make them aware. Toss them some keys to a car. That's great. Woohoo! I have a car. But if you never talk to them about, don't forget you got to fuel it. Oh yeah, and then these other people are going to want you to pay for insurance. And yeah, you still, every 3 months, you got to go get it looked at. You need your tires rotated. You need to get your oil changed. You don't have to teach them how to change the oil, but they need to know that it needs to be done. Otherwise, they're sitting on the side of the road because they run they've had the car for a year and they never did any maintenance. This is what we're here for. This is what mentoring is. It's not about sending them money. It's not about that. This is what it is. It's just being that person that goes, it's a good idea to get a car so you can afford that payment. How much is the insurance going to be? Call and find out first so you can see if you can afford the insurance and the car. So that's what we're trying to do. That's mentoring. That's getting them to that next place, having them think ahead. And then next thing you know, you look around and you got a whole adult on your hand who's making really good choices most of the time. Because I am an adult and I can only give you most of the time good decisions. I don't give you every time good decisions. So let's not expect our kids to be perfect. If we're not making every good, come on, we can't. We wouldn't have a market crash if all adults were making the perfect decisions.
Amen to that. That is so true. I think a lot of what you're saying, again, just investing in the long term, right? Is you can help somebody, but what they always say, like you can give a man a fish or you can teach him to fish, right? Is like really investing these skills. And I think just how you've been talking and the things you're talking about, it makes perfect sense that you are so invested in teens because you're an amazing person to get them at that moment to really help them through these different times. And since you've been able to love so many teens and take them on as your own family, what are maybe some of the biggest things that you saw that the teens needed, or maybe some of the biggest hurdles that you experienced while really caring and bringing in these teens into your life?
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is, especially in our girls, um, most kids coming out of foster care will very quickly have a child,
Mm.
and they don't know how to parent. And it's not that I mean, nobody knows how to parent. We just do what we saw done. But if we're doing what we saw being done, then our girls who have gone through the foster care system aren't seeing the best examples of what to do as a mom. And so it's important that when you have them, that you continue. It's that part where my teen girls are gone. They grew up. Some of them have children. And now I am mimicking, I am talking to them, I'm asking them questions about how they're handling situations, what they should be doing, what the child should be doing at this particular point. I'm explaining IEPs to them. I'm trying to let them know that there are things that can be done. And we take it for granted. If you grew up in a quote unquote functional home, your parents hugged you and they loved you and they told you and they validated you. But if you grew up in an abusive home where discipline was pulling your hair or punching you in the face, when you become a mom, you say, as you're having this child is in your belly, you're promising yourself you're never going to do that. But when the baby is crying and crying and crying and you haven't slept and you're trying to figure out what to do, sometimes we resort back to what we know as opposed to what we learned in the books or through the lecture. And so it's important that we recognize that these children, because I'm still calling them kids, that these children with these newborn babies, they need that. They need that guidance, not the you're doing it wrong, but the hey, let's practice let's practice changing this pamper. You know what you do? Like, best advice ever. Here's what you do. When they nap, you nap, you know? I'll come over and let you nap. I mean, that's just a good thing. If you're a good friend and your friend has a baby, she don't really want to talk to you. She's trying to just get herself together. You know what you say to her? I'm going to come over. I'm going to sit down with a book. You leave the baby in the living room with me. You go get you some sleep. I'll take care of the baby while you sleep. That that's better than money, because just imagine no sleep, the crying baby, you're trying to do everything, And this isn't like a single mom issue. This is, I'm married, but somebody had to keep going to work. So you're doing most of the day by yourself and you're just like frustrated because you know what I mean? And you want, that's the thing about getting this paternity where you want your husband to be there in those beginning times, but then when he leaves, that baby is still wholly and solely dependent on you. And if you're breastfeeding and you're trying to, it's just overwhelming. So to have a friend come in and say, why don't you take a nap? Let me just sit in the living room with the baby. We ain't going nowhere. I just need you to know I'm here. You rest. Awesome. And we can do that for our teen moms because if we don't, they don't understand. They never get the balancing thing. And usually the man that they choose has not had a much better background than them.
Yep.
So dad might not know how to dad either. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And so I love that. Right now, I have 13 grandbabies, right? That's awesome. Um, and two of the 13 were adopted because that's important to the foster kids that I had. They're, if they hear this, they're gonna be like, you don't call us foster kids, but that's important to the children that I raise, is that they're gonna they are thinking about adopting and raising children. And to me, that's a legacy, right? And I love it. I love it that they're loving on other children and they've become these great parents and they're looking out for someone else. So I'm excited about it. And I think everyone who encounters that kind of thing, it'll change their life. It will change your life. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and it is my hope that in 10 years, I'll have enough land that I can build dorms so that when the children age out of foster care, if they don't have any place to go, they will have a place to go because I don't want them on the street. I don't want them struggling to figure it out because now, of course, we have even more than before. We have trafficking and we have, and let's like, yeah, we can't do that. And we have states who are putting kids who are quote unquote unadoptable in juvenile detention centers until they turn 18. And then there's no structure. They're just learning to live in a system. And so the numbers of incarcerated youth who are in foster care is ridiculous, but it's because there's no other skill. So you go back, you know what? If I'm going to be homeless, but I know that if I get into a little bit of trouble, I can go back to jail and they'll feed me and I'll have medical care and clothes. I might choose that when I'm 19 and a half with no family and I'm convinced no one loves me. So this is my mission, is to make sure every child knows that they are loved and appreciated and worthy and enough, and that this entire community of adults that we're building cares about them. And it doesn't matter who they are, what they look like, what their gender is, who they love, what happened in their past. It doesn't matter because who they are right now in front of me is is someone that I want to pour into so they can become the best version of themselves that they can. And then behind me is another army of adults who are saying, yes, call me. You have a question about financing? Call me. You have a question about cars? Call me. You want to learn how to make baby food from scratch? Call me. I can't do all of those things, but there are enough adults in our community who can contribute just their knowledge that these kids are going to be quote unquote overparent, that we're going to overparent them until they're just so successful that they are going to be that parent we wish everyone had. And that's okay with me. that is okay with me. So that's the goal. That's the goal. And so we won't see kids on the street. We just won't do it. We're out there trying to get our veterans, our children, um, our discarded LGBTQ children. Um, I didn't even know it was still happening, but people are still putting their kids out because they say that they love someone of the same sex. I, no, come over here and we're going to make sure that you're okay. We're going to make sure you're safe. And so that is what I want. I just want our kids to be safe so that the next generation is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I want. It's what we're gonna have. And I got just so many adults who are willing to say, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense to me. They can call me if they need this. And so that is how we operate. And we have team meetups and you come see us and we're going to do this. And I have someone who is in California who wants to start her own charter, her own chapter in California. And so we want to keep it going so that we're not only doing it across Georgia, we're going to be doing it in California. And yeah, and then the next thing you know, we may get rid of the foster care system because we would have taken all those kids who were in foster care and they would have gotten enough mental health support, enough community support, and enough education that they don't repeat what was before.
Such a beautiful future. There's many times as you're talking and telling stories, I just get chills like thinking about it. And I love how passionate you are. I don't think anybody could ever deny that. And it's just you're right on so many things. And the more we make topics like this taboo and we keep them in the dark, the more we're just compounding the problem. So I love that you're saying, hey, we're hitting it head on. Like we're going here. We are saying you are loved, you are wanted. How can we support you and make sure we take care of you? And then all these kids that you have taken on to your family have now said, we want to continue that legacy for others. It's so beautiful. I know we're coming close on time, so I would love for you to share if people want to get involved. They're hearing this and they're like, wow, I want to get more involved. What are some tips or some contacts? Is it something to reach out to be able to be more involved in this great initiative?
Yes, so if you are living in Georgia, um, please reach out to me. My email, you can reach out to CEO Foster@gmail.com. Our website is V2 fosteringchange.org. Feel free to go there. We also have what's that thing? A Facebook. Feel free to go there. If you want to volunteer, full disclosure, I don't really do social media that well. So if you want to volunteer and just help me out on that area, that's cool. If you want to be an adult that someone can call, send me an email, and then you got to do the regular stuff, get your fingerprints done, make sure you're okay, and then we can definitely put you on our call list. And here's the cool thing: this is not a commitment to do it every single day. You're just available if. So if at any point you decide, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore, we take you off the list and we don't send anybody to you. So it is really just that simple. And then sometimes we ask you to send a card to someone, a birthday card or a we're thinking about you card. So it really is not heavy lifting on your part. We teach classes. We have a location in Riverdale, Georgia, where we teach classes. They can come in and do hands-on classes. And we'll be doing something on December 15th, which is also, you can find that on our Facebook page, and it's also on Eventbrite. We're having a teen game night. First, we're going to talk about, this is that time of year where we talk about suicide prevention. So we'll do that first, and then we're going to have a gingerbread building contest, which is always fun because once you time somebody on building the gingerbread house, you never know what you're going to get. So that's going to be fun, and then we'll play board games, and we'll eat and we'll laugh. So it's going to be a really good time. So if you have teens out there and you want to come, check Eventbrite and this V2 Fostering Change, and we're there and you can be there. But if you're any place else in the world and you're like, I want to help some foster kids, I would say check with your local CASA. CASA is an amazing program that will teach you how to advocate for our youth. And so they're there and they're in every community, and it's an amazing program. And then you could just Google any local area, but if you check with your CASA, they can connect you to foster programs where you can get involved in your community. And then we're just going to do this together because everyone who's working to build our children, we're in it together. So as much as I appreciate anybody who wants to support V Squared, yeah, look outside your window. Go throw a ball with the kid next door who only has one parent and she's working all the time or he's working all the time. Play catch. So just we're just going to do this together. And yeah, we're just going to it's going to be so much love going around. We're just going to conquer it all. That's the way I look at it. So um thank you for, just having this conversation with me. We could be here 2 hours because I love talking about the kids, but having this time with you and hearing your perspective and yes, validating what I'm doing. I mean, I would have kept doing it even if you didn't like it, but to hear you validate it, it puts that little extra pep. And so, we'll do more next year. So, like I said, this year we did about $9,000 in scholarships for the kids who were in college. We furnished some homes for kids who didn't go to college and wanted to stay. We provided beds and some basic essentials. We have we call it a lending closet, although we never expect to get anything back, but we call it a lending closet because I grew up in the Army and that's what they did. You would go to your next duty station and it would be like months before you get your household goods. So you go over to the lending closet and you could get plates and all the starter stuff you needed. So we have that. And so when the kids are moving out and they need that, that's free. We don't charge for any of our training. And when we have our conferences, I do everything I can to get sponsors so that the kids and the parents don't have to pay anything out of pocket. So yeah, and also over in Riverdale, we're doing parenting classes where we have peer support groups for domestic violence and for SA, and so we're just trying to provide as much as we can as a community, as a community entity. But we are not afraid to use the resources around us. We don't do food because there are 6 food banks, but I have them all listed. So you can go to those food banks and you can get food. And so we support them as well. So, but again, um, this has been an amazing time for me talking about what I love so much. So thank you, Miss Jessica Rose.
Well, I'm so glad that you came on. I'm learning so much through every guest that's been on, and it's really exciting. I think I shared with you I had a friend who was on a few weeks ago talking about her experience becoming a foster mom, and it's so lovely to know that there's so many great people in the world that are doing amazing things, and that's why I want to showcase these champions of hope because our world can be so dark at times, and these kids that you're taking in and taking care of have gone through some major heartache and darkness. So giving them a chance, giving them hope and seeing what hope can do for someone and change their life is just so beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about everything you do outside of this. And I'm so grateful that our paths crossed and that we've been able to stay in contact because you have done a lot of amazing things. And maybe we'll have you back on as a guest in the future to talk more.
Thank you so much. And I wish you well. And as soon as my Spotify says you're there, I'm gonna plug in. Because I think you're an amazing person, even when you're not doing these interviews. You yourself have poured out and given so much to our community. Your work saves lives, and it is greatly appreciated. You are appreciated. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I appreciate you. I'm glad this world has you, and then hopefully we can shed light on more people doing amazing things in their community. So, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.